Hi guys, welcome back to Conversations with Francesca. It's your girl Francesca here again. Last week we started a new series, the parenting series, and last week we started a topic that people would generally consider a bit touchy or controversial, if you would ask me. So we started talking about should everyone actually be a parent? And some of the things that I talked about is that the fact that your genetic makeup makes you have the ability to procreate, it doesn't mean that you should actually birth a child. So the fact that you can does not mean that you should. So you need to, be mentally prepared. You need to consider some of the criteria that we spoke about last week. You need to consider if you have those to know that yes, I am well equipped to actually parent a child. So we also talked about the fact that there is, spiritual component. I'm a believer, so I like to sometimes touch on aspects regarding some of the topics that I speak about. So concerning this one, I want to look at is there is it like crucial that you have to be a parent? Is there a, will I call it, an obligation placed on us as believers to actually become parents? Are we required to be parents? Does your parenting have anything to do with your Christianity or your walk with God? Does it touch on anything? I would say no. I would say that from my point of view and from the scriptures that I've read, I do not think that there is an absolute requirement that a believer needs to parent a child. It doesn't impact your relationship or your walk with God. And I always would say that Apostle Paul did not get married, and I do not recall saying that he birthed a child. He wasn't married, he didn't have a child, and yet he did exploits for God. There are tons of them in the Bible that probably did not, get married, and they did exploits for God as well. So it is important that we know that, so that you don't put yourself under unnecessary pressure and say, oh, because scripture says this, therefore I have to. Let's look at what the scriptures say specifically regarding parenting, okay? We're going to look at Genesis chapter 1. We're going to look at from verse 27 to 28. I'm going to read from the New King James Version. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female, he created them. Then God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the air. So, most times people tend to attribute this part that says, be fruitful and multiply, to the fact that you actually have to procreate. While that in itself is true, it doesn't necessarily mean that you necessarily have to have children. So there are other areas of your life that can be fruitful and that you can multiply in. It doesn't mean that you have to have children biologically, and therefore some people that can't, maybe because of health reasons or something, then they get put in a box, and they are treated in a certain kind of way. So you need to understand this, and don't pressure yourself that it doesn't mean that you necessarily have to have children, okay? Multiply, be fruitful. You can be fruitful in other areas. You can be fruitful in your career. You can multiply in your career. You can do other things in that manner. It can touch on other aspects of your life, and not necessarily in the aspect of you birthing children. Exodus 20:12 also, when God was giving them the commandments, really talked about honoring your father and your mother. So we see an allusion to parenting as well, mother, father. But again, not necessarily, it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that every single person have to toe that line. Now, some have said that parenting is a calling. I do not see it as that. I see it as something that if you desire to do it, you must work at it. You must get ready to actually be prepared for it. Somebody was saying that people go through school, you go to the university to get a degree to be able to do a job. You you go to you go to different institutions to obtain certifications to be able to carry out a particular activity. But then when it comes to areas of our lives that impact us the most, so we're looking at marriage, we're looking at parenting, we're looking at motherhood, different areas of our lives. And then we discover that we are zero prepared, when we have zero preparation for those areas of our lives. We haven't even worked on ourselves enough to be able to become who we need to be, for the child that we are going to bring forward. Let's look at Ephesians chapter 6. And I'm just giving this scripture so that it just makes it easier, so that we will just have that understanding, that's scriptural aspect of parenting. Ephesians chapter 6 and verse 4. So I like to start from verse 1. It talked about children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise, that it may be well with you and you may live long on earth. And you, fathers, do not provoke your children to wrath, but bring them up in the training and admonition of the Lord. So that's one thing, and that's some of the people that have spoken about the fact that parenting is a calling always use this scripture. They push forward this scripture, but I see it as a responsibility being placed on you once you make up your mind to be a father, once you make up your mind to be a parent. And this is not just for the dads, it's encompassing. So both fathers and mothers, it is your responsibility. This is what you should do. Okay, bringing them up in training and admonition of the Lord. So if you're a believer, you know that this is what I want to do for my child. I need my child to walk my footsteps. I need my child to be able to follow after, my beliefs. When Bible was talking about Abraham, and he said, I know Abraham, I know that he will command his children after me. And if we look at the trajectory of Abraham's life, we'll see that his children actually served the Lord. And it was from him that the children of Israel proceeded from. They actually followed the God of their father Abraham. So if this is what you want to do, if this is an aspect that you want to pick on, then you need to walk that aspect. You need to make yourself available. You need to be subject to training yourself so that you can train. You need to be able to bring up your children in the way of the Lord. Teach them what you need them to know according to the precepts of the Lord. Another scripture that speaks to what we're talking about today is in the book of Proverbs, Proverbs 22 and verse 6. Train up a child in the way he should go. When he is old, he will not depart from it. Training. Again, it speaks to training. So again, there is a responsibility on both the father and the mother to give their children to training. So you are a parent because you have taken on that role to actually parent that child. So you are not just a parent because the child shares the same DNA, the same genes with you. You are a parent because you have decided, made up your mind that this is what you want to do. You are a parent because you've made up your mind that I will give the time required to bring this child up. I'll bring, give myself, give this child time, to be able to raise them, shape them, mold them into what they need to be. Another scripture that I like, I think is one of my favorite scriptures when they talk about children. Okay, Psalm 127, 3 to 5, when they talk about children, um children are the heritage of God, the fruit of the womb is reward, da 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 da, yada yada yada. Of this is a gift, how do I want to do this gift? How do I want to raise this gift? Okay, so this is something that you must also consider. You know to yourself that I am just a caretaker. Basically, God owns this child, so I will give account. I like when some preachers say that some of the first responsibilities that parents have is to disciple their own children. So it is not enough that you're doing exponential things for God in God's kingdom, and yet your family is suffering. Your children are not what they need to be. It's important that there be a balance. It's important that you give yourself, commit yourself to those children, give time to them to raise them to be quality children. Also give time to the things of the Lord. Let there be a balance. Okay, I just wanted to quickly touch on that before we move on to the next aspect of what I wanted to talk about. So now that you've made up your mind, we've talked about, we've been going on about, should everybody be a parent? And one of the other questions, one of the things that I want to talk about is, it's okay not to be a parent, okay? Choosing not to be a parent doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. My perspective, and I will share this. Initially, when someone tells me, especially when I moved out of my home country and came here, and then people tell me that, oh, I do not want to be a parent, it takes me back. Like, I'm shocked. I think my reaction the first few times that I had some of those conversations, I was completely in shock, because I was like, how will somebody not want to be a parent? How will somebody not want a child? Like, it's a different ball game if you do not have a child because you can't. But you can, and you don't want to. One of the first encounters that I had was, I think I mentioned it in one of my motherhood series, where I was talking about my then manager, and she already had one child, and then she had another one and gave that child up for adoption a long time ago. And then when I was asking her why, she was just like, oh, because I know that I do not have love to give to that child. I mean, I'm like, just two children. How will you not have love to give to two children? It didn't make sense to me then. I used to think that it was a selfish thing to do. But thinking back now, like right now, when you ask me, there's been a perspective shift in how I look at it. So I do not consider it as being selfish. I actually think that it's being responsible if you know that you do not have the ability to parent the child. There's no need bringing a child into the world when you know that you cannot give that child all that the child requires to thrive. So the question you would ask yourself, if I birth this child, will I have availability for this child? Can I give this child emotional support? Can I give this child the training required to thrive? What can I provide that will make this child better than this child would be? It's important that you look at it that, okay, if I do nothing with this child, or if I do not train, if I don't commit myself to this child, what would this child look like 15 years down the line? Think about it. Now, if you know that you don't have capacity to raise that child, then it's okay not to have that child. And it may not even be that you do not have the capacity. It may just be a personal thing. You just don't want to. I remember having a conversation with one of my colleagues, and she was like, I really love children, but I just don't think that I am cut out to parent them. So she babysits her sister's kids, but that's as far as she can go. Babysit. And when I asked her why, she was like, oh, babysitting, because they will go back. Francesca, why I like to babysit my sister's children is because they are not mine. So I know that their parents will come get them, and then I will have my quiet and my peace. I just don't like anything messing up with that. And that's okay. It's possible that your mental threshold cannot accommodate another individual. It's okay. It's just like when people decide that, oh, I do not want to be married. There's nothing wrong with you Okay, if you find fulfillment in being alone, that is fantastic. If you find fulfillment in not having children, that is also okay. There's a lot of societal pressure, especially for women. So you get married today, and womb watchers, like I call them, 9 months, they're already checking. Do you have a child? Oh, are you people not planning to have a child? When are you having a child? Oh, what's happening? Is there a problem? Even when there is no problem, are you people having trouble? Have you considered this? They most times they don't even stop to think that it might be by choice. It might be that they just don't want to have kids. It might be that they are in this union only for companion, because they love each other, they want to be able to be together, not necessarily because they want to bring another individual into their mix. And that's okay. And that's okay. So I kind of had a perspective shift as I began to see things, as I began to experience people. Then I realized that when you choose not to have a child, there's nothing wrong with you. It's a choice that you can make. And the society should not be made to decide what choices you can make. Okay? I went through a few listings. What are the reasons people choose not to be parents? And when I think about it, looking at myself, parenting is hard work. I've said it before, I will say it again. It is hard work. Parenting is extremely hard. It will suck you, it will take from you. There are joys that come with being a parent, but being a parent is also hard work. So when you do make up your mind to be one, okay, remember that parenting is hard work. So this sometimes some people just don't want to put in the work, and that's why they don't want to have children. They've gone through it, they've done their calculations, and they've seen that if I decide to have children, I cannot, this is not going to be sustainable. No, this is not something that I can do in the long run. So I do not want to go through it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to be a parent. And it's okay. It's okay. I was reading a chat recently. I was just on a blog, and I was just reading about some of the concerns that people have and why they choose not to have children. And the lady shared her experience, and she was like, she's glad she chose never to have kids, and she's happy, she's fulfilled. Her career is priority, she's been able to achieve XYZ, she's been able to do this and that and that and that. She owns this, she owns that, she's been able to travel to XYZ countries. Like, she's able to do a lot of travels around different countries in the world that appeals to her. Now, such a person, by her standards, is living a fulfilling life. Okay? Others would say that is so selfish. You don't want to have a child because you want to be gallivanting the world. You don't want to have a child because you want to do this. Well, it is a choice, and she has made it, and it is okay. People need to understand that you have a right to make your choice. It is your decision, especially when your choice do not directly or indirectly impact another individual. It is your choice. Of course, on the flip side, they would say, what if everybody decides not to have children? Then there will be an extinction of the human race. Well, the truth is, everybody will not decide not to have children. Okay? So it is not going to happen. And that's why God gave us the power of choice. So that's why God gave us the power of choice, really. And when I think about it, I think that God knows that we have the ability to choose, and that's why He decided to give us that power. Choose what you want to do, really. At the end of the day, be able to make informed choices, and choices that suits you. Then people decide not to have children because of their career aspiration and their personal goals. Take for instance, if you're trying to climb up the career ladder as a woman, and you have a child, there's that tendency that it will slow your growth, because then you take time off work for maternity leave, you will take time here and there, your child is sick, you need to be there, this one, that, and that, and that. The same thing is applicable for the man. So every present dad would know that they would need to take 1 or 2 days off. Something is happening with this child, XYZ, I need time off. So that's the thing. It impacts you one way or the other in terms of what you're doing. So some people don't want such impact. Some people don't want that to happen. So they just decide that, you know what, this is not what I want to do and I don't want to go through it. Then another reason that I've seen why people choose not to become parent is because of the kind of family they come from. So when you've experienced dysfunction, when you come from a dysfunctional family, um, I hear somebody saying that I have parented my siblings for so long that I feel like I've had my own kids through them, and I do not want to have any other child, because she's been thrown into that position of being a parent to her younger siblings that she's she's already worn out, she's exhausted, she does not want to have to repeat that over again. It's just like being a parent twice, redoing everything that you've done previously and doing it again, and probably now you're doing it that you're older, so these are things that scare people. They put them in a difficult position, and they don't want to do it. And that's okay. That's okay. So if you come from a dysfunctional home, if you come from a home where abuse is the order of the day, if you come from a home where you've been traumatized, some people have seen how their parents treated them, and they don't want to do that to another child. And they feel that they've been so damaged that they don't want to toe that line. The only thing that I say to those kind of people is you need to treat that damage, because really you may want to have a child. And the only reason you're not having the child is because of the experiences that you've had to go through. However, if you go through therapy and you seek counseling and they're able to address those areas of your life, then you will discover that, okay, maybe I really can have children. And then you can have children and you can bond, grow, and raise amazing children. Somebody said parenting is a gamble, and I believe it. And I was just sharing a thought, and he said, Francesca, listen, parenting is a gamble. You don't get to pick the kind of child you will have. You can bet a child that is very stubborn, non-compliant, difficult, and a pain. And then you can bet another child that is very well behaved, compliant, and XYZ, dots all the T, crosses all the T's, dots all the I's, extremely organized. So they consider it a gamble and they don't want to gamble. However, I also tell those people that the same way you consider that you cannot choose the kind of child that you will have is the same way that the child cannot choose the kind of parent that they would have. So both ways is a gamble. I as a child, I do not get the luxury to pick who my mom or dad will be. So also you do not get to choose which kind of child that you would have. However, I believe that whichever environment you raise that child in, how determined you are will definitely show up in the kind of child that you raise. So if you're determined to raise good children and you commit your time and resources to it, it will bear fruit. You will see the fruit. You will see it in the quality of the children that you would raise. Okay. Some people also, they hate the uncertainty that comes with raising children. They don't like the responsibility that comes with raising children. I've heard someone tell me that why should I be responsible, for how someone else turns out? Well, the someone else is your child. Okay. And when I hear comments like that, I'm like, then you need to properly check yourself. Do I really want to be a parent? Because the truth is, at some point you will feel responsible for how your child turns out. Now, that's not to say that the children do not have their own share, or that they are not responsible for their behavior. Absolutely they are. But you get to also share in that responsibility, because however they are raised will show up tomorrow. However they are raised will show up in the future. So whatever kind of future you want your child to have, you have to work on it now. Another thing that dissuades people from having kids is the financial aspect of it. Raising a child is very expensive. Raising a child is very expensive. What? Think about daycare fees. It is not easy. It is not cheap. Talk about diapers. Talk about clothes that they outgrow within minutes. Talk about extracurricular activities that you have to enroll them in. Talk about good schools that you have to pay for. Talk about university education. Talk about all sorts. Talk. It is expensive. It is expensive, not only in the financial aspect, okay? Yes, it gobs a lot of money, I can assure you that, but it also takes a lot from you emotionally. It drains you, it draws from you. You can be tired as a parent, and if you were alone, you don't need to think about what you would eat. But as a parent, your kids would eat. So you have to figure out what they will eat. You can't say, I'm too tired, nobody eats in this house. It's not gonna happen. You can't say, I'm too tired, my baby can just go to sleep. That's not gonna happen. You can't say, I'm too tired, therefore this child stay outside while I rest. Those are not things that will happen. So as a parent, it is important that you know that these are things that would happen regardless. So you must make time for it, commit your resources to it, commit time to it, so some of these things, when some people think about the resources, the drain, the hole that having a child will create in their pocket. My friend and I were doing a cost analysis of how much we spend, and we're like, oh gosh, if we didn't have kids, we'll really be rich by now. And we're just laughing at ourselves at the analysis we're making, and we're like, I'm sure our parents said the same thing. If I didn't have this girl, maybe by now I'll be so rich, because I would have committed my resources to some other areas, and maybe made some good financial decisions, and made money. So it's important that you think about that. That's some of the reasons why people don't want to have kids. Another reason is physical and health concerns. So that's the one that really, really makes me feel bad. People want to have children, but they can't. So they are forced to choose not to have children because of their health concerns, But and their health concerns might be responsible for them not having these children biologically. Sometimes it also impacts their ability to be able to parent a child at all, because if you're not stable health wise, you don't want to bring a child into that mix where you will not be available, or you're constantly in hospital, and then the child is constantly having to go to different places to be in. So that's some of the things. Some people are also so scared about their genetic makeup that they're afraid that whatever it is that is in their family, pre-existing history, they don't want to pass it off to another child. So they feel like, you know what, this gene is not good enough to be passed on to another offspring. Let me just end it, right? Like with me, let me not give it to another human being. Um, Fear. I know that everything that I've touched on different aspect of fear, because a little bit of them speaks to some fear, even though we try to ignore it, or people that make decisions not to have children try to ignore it, but underlining their decisions is some sort of fear. So I'd say address the fear, revisit it, and see, do I still feel the same way after having addressed the fear that I have. I remember watching a show, and this doctor said, she was pregnant twice, and she was like, I do not want to have a child. And she aborted those pregnancies twice. And I'm like, so why get pregnant when you know that you don't want to have a children? And anyway, there was a mix up here and there. It was a show anyway, it's a movie. However, one conversation that she had with a fellow doctor struck me, and the doctor was like, oh, maybe you should keep this one. You may just end up liking the child. And she was like, I will not. I'm not going to change my mind. I'm not one of those that will 10 years down the line, I'll be like, oh, thank God I had this child. I now love you. I will not love the child. I am incapable of loving that child. Honestly, I took that conversation as something that speaks volume. Honesty in its purest form, acknowledging what you can and what you cannot do. So she knew that I do not have the capacity to love this child. Now, we've looked at the reasons why people don't want to go into parenting, why the hood, the parenting hood is not something that they want to journey into. And let's look at people that were forced to be parents, okay? Um, you were forced to be a parent. And one thing that I've noticed is that when you become a parent by force, you know it's not something that you want to do, it's not something that you can do, but because of societal pressure you jump in and you become a parent. You will struggle through it. Every single thing that that child does will annoy you. Everything, every mistake will be a cause for, you know, you would just magnify it. When parenting is not something that you choose to do, it becomes a struggle. So it's important that you do not put yourself in that situation where you are forced to be a parent, not by society, not by your parents, not by so-called biological clock, not by the fear of being alone when you are old. In fact, I always like this I think it's a proverb from where I'm from that they say that somebody that doesn't have a child will still be buried. The one that has a child will equally be buried. So, loneliness or fear of what happens to me when I'm old should not be the reason why you birth a child. You must have a child because you genuinely desire to be a parent, because you've genuinely equipped yourself to be the best version of yourself that can parent a child. If you know that you are not in that space to parent a child, please do not get into the mix of being a parent. It's important that you know this, and it's important that you make your peace with it. I'm going to come back with another episode on our parenting series. I just wanted to lay the foundation, and I wanted us to just talk about, really, is it is it absolutely necessary that everybody be a parent? And we've talked about qualities, qualifiers, what makes you a good parent. We've talked about the fact that choosing not to be a parent is a choice and it is valid, you know. We've talked about being forced into parenting, you know, and we've talked about the fact that when you're forced into parenting, you experience struggles throughout. You know, we've talked about the do's and the don'ts. We've talked about how you get into the mix of being a parent, whether you're a parent biologically, whether you're a pseudo parent, whether you're a parent by adoption. Parenting is hard work. You must give your all to it. I like this cliche that my friend used to say. She would say, Francesca, I have enough love to go around. So being a parent is what I want to be. You need to get to that space before you make a decision to be a parent. Till I see you next time, it is Francesca. Make sure you like this video, comment, share your thoughts. Share your thoughts. What do you think? Should everybody be a parent? Have a wonderful rest of the day.